Wine Studio.
In spiritual life, the following things are very, very important: enthusiasm, conviction, being straightforward, not doing anything underhand, following rules and regulations, being an association of saintly people.
This is episode number 120 of The Inspiring Talk with Shridhar Venkat. Welcome, guys, to The Inspiring Talk. My name is Bijay Gautam. I'm your host for this show. Each week, I interview today's most successful and inspiring personalities to help you realize your inner potential. In this episode of The Inspiring Talk, I speak with Shridhar Venkat. Shridhar is the CEO of the Akshaypatra Foundation, a non-profit organization that provides midday meals to children. Before lockdown, they were feeding 1.8 million children in different schools across the country. The foundation aims to take that number to 5 million by 2025. The man leading this foundation, Shridhar, worked with multinational companies like Philips, ABB, and Webex in the past. In the quest to search for his purpose in life, he ended up quitting his corporate career and take a plunge into nonprofit. In our conversation today, we discuss Shridhar's childhood dream to serve the country, how spirituality has helped him become a better leader, and we also try to bust some myths around nonprofits. My attempt with this show is to expose you to different success templates people have followed in their life. And in this episode, I try to decode Shridhar's template. Without further ado, let's jump in. Shridhar, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Bijay. Pleasure joining you.
Shridhar, you come from Nagpur, from an average middle-class family. You were 4 siblings, and your father worked as a clerk in a government setup. So how was it like growing up in Nagpur? What were your dreams as a child?
I would say one of the great place to live in India is Nagpur. So my childhood was very good. Great memories, Bijay. As you rightly mentioned, I came from a average middle class background. We were 4 siblings, and father was in a clerical cadre in government undertaking. So my growing up years were a lot of fun, a lot of middle class fun, I would say, and we enjoyed every bit of it. And I learned a lot.
Anything that stands out particularly when you look back today?
So things like playing marbles with friends, or playing cards with family, or going out for movies, or getting drenched in rain. The second tier city, the flavor of a city like that is very memorable. You don't forget it. And the quality of people in Nagpur is amazing. Very hospitable, and very lively, and very friendly kind of people. So I have great memories. So my growing up years are very good. I learned a lot of values during my growing up years from my parents. That really helped me in my career journey as well. And I also learned courage as a young boy from my mother.
So what were your dreams, when we were growing up as a kid? And oftentimes, when I'm sharing about my own story, I kind of say that, there was my own dream, the dream that I had for myself. And then eventually later, when I was in 8th, 9th standard, then there was a dream, other dream that was kind of instilled in me, by my family and, people around me. Then, that was kind of an acquired dream, not my own dream, right? So what was your dream? And was it your own dream, or was it something that was acquired dream? I would love to know. And there's a reason why I'm asking about your dream. I will talk about later, but I would love to know,
Sure.
What your dream was.
So school days, Bijay, it was just fun. I didn't have any dream. It was just enjoying. We were just enjoying. And whatever ups and downs were there, we were just taking it in stride. But when I went to college, my engineering college, I think the dream started concretizing. I would say I started getting direction. I started introspecting what I'm good at, what I need to do, what I'm not good at. In fact, I realized that what I'm not good at, okay, in college days. And then when it comes to dreams, I wanted to do something for our country, something meaningful. So during my engineering college days, we had interview from Indian Navy. So I had applied for it and got shortlisted. So the interviewer asked me a question, Sridhar, why you want to join the Indian Navy?
Mm-hmm.
So I told him, sir, मरने के पहले कुछ करके मरना है. I don't want to,
Mm-hmm.
just like that die. I want to do something meaningful for this nation and then die.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was a patriotic person. I'm a patriotic person, want to do something for our nation, great nation. And that was a dream I had those days. And I think Akshaypatra has given me a great platform to fulfill that.
Yeah. So, you mentioned that you're patriotic and, the feeling that, you kind of even sat on the Navy, interview and the whole thing about the inspiration to serve to the country, or I want to do something for my country. And that's thinking beyond yourself. That's thinking not only for yourself, but for the country, right? And while a lot of people may say that I want to do something for someone else, or maybe for the country, or maybe as we call keypad or keyboard warriors that we have, who are all patriotic on the behind the screens, but very few actually go out and actually pursue that, right? So what was that inspiration for you? Where was that kind of seed was planted on your head that, hey, you know what, I need to do something? Were you exposed to army, or were you exposed to the people who were serving the country?
This is what this inspiration came from: reading and looking at army men, watching shows which are and movies which are of course patriotic. Okay, so these things really inspired me, and I always had I was in awe of the army uniform, of the naval uniform, or the air force uniform. Okay, and one thing that struck me when I used to look at armed forces was the courage and conviction which they had. So that was something which aligned with my own values, which I was taught as a youngster by my mother. So I felt that probably I'll be able to contribute to this great nation. But the story goes that my mother didn't allow me to join the Navy, and
Yeah.
I went ahead and pursued my corporate life.
So the other question that I had for you was the values that you have learned from your mother, and you said courage and conviction is two of the values that you kind of picked up from your mother. Is there any instances that you kind of remember, or maybe something that she did herself, by looking at her you kind of picked those up? Because when I look at my own life, right? So the lesson that I have picked, one of the biggest lesson that I picked from my own father is, try and do everything to the best of your capability, right? So to the best that you can do. And he's someone like who kind of puts everything in his power to do things. And that is something that I've kind of picked and learned from my father. He never told me that, you do it this way. This is just merely by watching him do things throughout his life, right? So, so how, you kind of picked those values from your mother?
So my mother had her own struggles in life, and she's just ninth grade educated. But few things which I've learned from her, and from her, the way she taught me. We have three brothers and I have a sister. So she used to tell us, the guys at home, the boys at home, and I've heard this very distinctly. I remember very clearly. She used to say that boys never get into a fight. You should not instigate a fight. You should never get into a fight. But if you are invited to a fight, that means you are pushed into a corner, then you need to fight to finish it. So that was I think probably instilling the army ideology in me. Okay, so that was one. Second, she used to tell the courage. You guys should have so much courage that if you see a crawling snake, you should have guts to stamp on it and kill it. So she used to say, especially for boys, that you should be courageous, you should be fearless, and face whatever situation was there. And I also learned a lot of patience from her, Vijay. So even in Akshaypatra today, we had some tough times in the past and even recently. Patience, I think I picked it up from her, and that has really, really helped me. And patience. Another thing which I learned from her growing up, Vijay, is respect. Respecting others, talking in a manner which is respectful to others, irrespective of their social strata, socio-economic strata, whomsoever he or she may be. Being respectful is what I learned.
Great. So, those were really beautiful lessons there: patience, courage, conviction, respect. Really powerful lessons there. And I'm sure, a lot of those lessons help you today in what you do. And before we jump in there, and you have worked in, organizations, for-profit organizations like, Webex and so on and so forth in the senior leadership position. But then you, kind of moved to join this non-profit organization, Akshaypatra, some 15 years ago.
Yeah, business. Yeah, 15 years old, still the 16th year of working in it.
Yeah. So what was that inspiration that, so obviously that one seed was, already was always there with you, which is like, I want to do something for the country. But, I would love to know more about the story of you, taking up this role at Akshaypatra and taking it to where it is today.
So, Vijay, after I had that dream of doing something for the country, I started evolving also as a person. I realized that patriotism is very good, but there is something beyond it. So that's when I started venturing in the on the spiritual front, and we had an ISKCON temple near our home, and I used to frequent there. Akshaypatra, as you know, is an ISKCON Bangalore initiative. It was born in the ISKCON campus in Bangalore, in Rajajinagar. So I used to closely interact with the current chairman, Sri Madhupandit Dasa, and who's also the current president of ISKCON Bangalore. And he has guided me a lot on the spiritual front. And I also realized that I can definitely dovetail what I want to do for the country along with my spiritual pursuits. And I started volunteering for ISKCON, volunteering a little bit on the Akshaypatra front. So then I got an opportunity to work abroad. So I went there on a pre-employment visit. And somehow I didn't like the place. I didn't like the culture. The money and all was there. So I had another opportunity to lead a company in India. And I was in the transition period. I didn't accept that overseas employment. I was in transition period. I stayed at the ISKCON Bangalore guest house. And that's when the current chairman and the president of ISKCON Bangalore, chairman of Akshaypatra and president of ISKCON Bangalore, he called me to his office and he said, Shridhar, what are you doing? So I told him I'm the transition from one company to another. So he told me, Shridhar, why are you building empires for others? Why don't you build for these children? In fact, he said, why don't you build for Krishna's children? So that was like a moment of calling for me. And it took probably a minute for me to say yes. I didn't think much. It was like everything coming true, coming together to get me in the direction of where I wanted to head. Because I was also looking for purpose in life. Corporates have had my own share of successes and happiness, but I was looking for purpose in life. So patriotism to then to purpose. I felt all this came together when Sri Madhupandit Dasa, Madhupandit Prabhu asked me this question of why are you building empires for others? Why don't you build empires for these children? So that was like a moment of calling, and I decided to quit corporate life and join Akshaypatra in the year 2006 January. It has been a fantastic journey, very satisfying journey for the last 15 years. And I'm thankful to Sri Madhupandit Dasa on this one.
So when you were joining Akshaypatra, there's this interesting, thing that your wife said you, which you have mentioned in the other interview, is like, Shridhar, मैं तेरे को प्यार करती हूँ, but मैं चने नहीं खा सकती. Could you explain what that was, and and what she actually meant, with that statement?
So Jyoti is my wife's name, and she has had a phenomenal influence on my life. And she has been a sheet anchor support, and she has stood behind me in good and bad times, and always been supportive, very encouraging. So I also owe a lot of what I have achieved, at least at a very transactional level, at a material level, to the support which she has given me. So when I got this opportunity, she was not there. Then Madhu Pandit Prabhu offered this job to me. So I called her up and told her this, and she obviously mentioned this dialogue that you just told. So what she basically meant was, see, we have a child. Okay, it's very. She knew that I'm spiritually oriented, and I have my fun side, and I have my own ways of doing things. But she wanted to make sure that at least दो वक्त की रोजी रोटी तो हो जाएगी ना, like it won't be a issue, like. So like typical mother, typical wife, caring person, very caring lady. So this was basically her concern that whether this man is going to leave everything and join Akshaypatra to become a monk.
Yeah, and this brings me to the interesting point that a lot of people, when it comes to join an NGO or work for non-profit, think that it's like putting everything to serve others, and there is nothing in for them. Like how that usually works, and I'm sure a lot of young people listening to this right now may have this perception that if I work for non-profit or if I work for NGO, then my basic things or the basic requirements of my life are not usually fulfilled. How is it like? How does that work? If you can give some sense, for the young people who might be looking at working in the non-profit sector.
Vijay, I don't differentiate between a not-for-profit and a for-profit so much. In fact, that's the way I have personally tried to work in Akshaypatra. That's the way we have built our teams. If you look at my core team members, they all come from for-profits. Legal entity-wise, we may be a not-for-profit. The work-wise, we are like a for-profit or maybe better than for-profit in certain areas. Core of Akshaypatra is passion and compassion. Actually, Akshaypatra was formed with a story of compassion, actually. So coming back to your question, I'm of the view, Vijay, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy also, extremely, extremely important, whether you are in for-profit or a not-for-profit, your fundamental needs have to be taken care of. If you want to save someone who's drowning, you need to be in a place which is secure. So it's extremely important. I'm not saying you need to be lavish, but and lead a very ostentatious kind of a lifestyle. But the fundamental needs, the small pleasures and happiness of life, should be taken care of, and that's what we have also ensured in Akshaypatra. We may not be paying market salaries, but we may be about 70-80% of what the market gives for a similar profile in the outside world. But what Akshaypatra gives is purpose in life. You have a larger picture and a great sense of fulfillment.
Yeah.
A great sense of fulfillment. So I feel Akshaypatra is a platform, since a lot of youngsters will be listening to this, Akshaypatra is a platform where you can contribute to transforming this great nation, transforming the lives of children, and while growing professionally and personally in your life.
Great. Also, you have mentioned it, earlier in one of the conversations that Akshaypatra has head for profit and heart for non-profit. Please elaborate.
This I have been mentioning this for quite some time, Vijay. If someone were to ask me, can you describe Akshaypatra? I would say Akshaypatra is a person whose mind or head is of a for-profit and heart of a not-for-profit. Why I'm mentioning this is, we have 57 locations, 20,000 schools, 1.8 million children pre-COVID time we're covering. If I save one paisa on the cost of meal, it is meal for 4,000 children for one whole year without raising funds. So operational efficiency and effectiveness play a very important role. That comes a lot from the for-profit sector, corporate, okay, which are profit-oriented, which are efficiency-oriented. So what we have done in Akshaypatra is the DNA of Akshaypatra is we follow a lot of corporate practices, philosophies, and systems, and have maintained the passion and the devotion of and the compassion of a not-for-profit. So I feel that's a deadly combination, if you ask me, for an organization like ours. Missionary spirit, which comes from a not-for-profit, and professionalism, which comes from a for-profit. So Akshay Patra, if you ask me, is a confluence of missionary spirit and professionalism. So I would say that is one of the reasons why we are what we are today.
I think that's a really a powerful lesson there for a lot of people who are listening. And I see two things there, right? So one first part that we discussed in the last question is also for a lot of people thinking that, hey, when it comes to working for non-profit, that's not necessarily always you are volunteering, where you are always not getting paid and you're just working for it. You get paid, your basic needs are taken care of, and still you can serve people. You can still go to bed every single evening feeling that the sense of fulfillment, I think, which is such a powerful thing that you have said. And if you really think about it, what we are looking at the end of the day is that, right, which is the sense of fulfillment and a bit of that happiness, and that smile in our heart, saying that we were able to make the difference in someone else's life. And it's and when I have had conversations with several people in this show, and one thing that really stood out, the core of what everyone is trying to do, and the people who have had all the things that they wanted in their life, then what they're looking for is that which is the sense of fulfillment, the sense of meaning in their life. And here you are getting to do that from day one. If somebody just starts, let's say, the career with something like Akshaypatra, or maybe, there are several other non-profit organizations or the organizations that have these noble causes.
Vijay, as a young boy, I learned one more thing, which had a tremendous influence on my life. I learned from, let me recollect who told this, Sadhu Vaswani. He said that happiness moves in circles. Then I make you happy. You make someone else happy. That person makes someone else happy. You get into the circle of happiness. And that is what each one of us is looking for.
So Shridhar, now I want to, switch a bit of a gears and talk about Shridhar as a leader. So as a leader, when you were kind of getting in Akshaypatra, or over the period of time, I'm sure you have evolved a lot as a leader. But, have you ever seen a leader, or maybe something you saw as a leader say or do that became a powerful lesson for you, and something that made you say that, wow, I think that was really a powerful thing that a leader can do. I think I should do this too. Is there anything like that from, some of the people that you looked up to as a young, person who is trying to kind of manage the team? So if there are some lessons like that, that would be interesting to know. Yeah.
Two leaders who have really had great influence in my life, Vijay. One was Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Again, courage, fighting spirit. So the Subhash Chandra Bose I respect a lot. Then from a corporate side, if you look at JRD Tata for the vision, Mr. Ratan Tata. And from Mr. Narayana Murthy, I learned one very important, very powerful thing. To look at the punchline or the key tagline of Infosys says, ideas create and values protect. I look up to Mr. Narayana Murthy. Then I also learned a very important lesson from Mr. Azim Premji. During my growing up years in engineering, I had read an interview about him where he said, take time to identify your values, but once you have identified them, stick to them. So these leaders have had great influence in my life. And above all these people, my spiritual master had a great influence on my life. Swami Srila Prabhupada, who is my spiritual master, who is also the founder Acharya of the International Krishna Consciousness. From him, I have my list of learning is endless. And I continue to learn. And I have tried to blend learnings from the corporate leaders, the learnings from a spiritual master like Srila Prabhupada, and trying to blend these two in service of children in Akshaypatra. So because I believe strongly, Vijay, that it's very important to have spiritual quotient when you talk of leadership.
I would like to double click on that one, which is how spirituality has helped you as a leader. And the reason I want to jump deep into this is because there are so many, I'm sure there are so many people who are here who are aspiring to be leader, or somebody who might already be leaders in their organization or the thing that they are doing currently, right? So what role, and this is one of my favorite questions lately, because I'm trying to understand a lot about spirituality myself, and this is why, oftentimes the podcast is a place for me to kind of scratch my own itch and try and find the answers for myself, and my listeners kind of find value in the conversations, and maybe they also have the similar kind of questions. So what role spirituality has played in your leadership, or let me put it that way, how spirituality has kind of influenced your leadership style?
So, Vijay, spirituality has immensely positively impacted my leadership style. I'll give one analogy for you to appreciate what I'm trying to say and how this is done. You see, suppose I have to cross a wall. The length of the ladder to cross the wall, or the distance between the two steps, they all form part of the intelligence quotient. Right? If I have to build a ladder to cross the wall, my intelligence quotient will tell me what should be the length of the ladder, what should be the distance between the two steps. My emotional quotient will help me if I were to say, I will cross this wall. That is my emotional quotient. Then there is a third one which is often forgotten. There is one more quotient. It's often forgotten. It's the spiritual quotient. The spiritual quotient will tell me whether should I cross this wall or not. Is this a wall to be crossed? So spirituality has really helped me in taking decisions which will by and large help the organization, by and large help the people who work. Of sometimes you do go wrong because you're a human being, right? We are bound to errors. But definitely this is like a torchbearer or a torchlight which clears the path ahead. Something which I learned from Swami Srila Prabhupada instantly, this is his 125th birth anniversary. I learned, so one of his teachings, which has really, really helped me, he said, in spiritual life, the following things are very, very important. He said, enthusiasm. Second is conviction. Third is being straightforward, not doing anything underhand. Fourth is following rules and regulations. And fifth is, he said, be in association of saintly people. Be in association of good people. Basically, association matters a lot. The kind of advice you will get. So another sixth thing he mentioned was patience. So I read this quote every day, Vijay. Every morning when I come to my office, I read this quote. And this has become an integral, not that I follow this to the T, but I make sure that I don't forget them and try to imbibe them as much as possible. Because I feel the whole leadership gets summarized in this, and basically you get a direction. So this is as far as things that have inspired me. But from a leadership, if you look from a different perspective, things like mutual respect, seeing from other person's perspective, empathizing I felt is very, very important for a leader. It is another thing which I learned, Vijay, was it is okay sometimes you're compromising on efficiency or effectiveness or things beyond your control, but do not compromise on your value system.
Mm.
If you compromise on your value system, the knowledge which I want to give is you may build a 100-story building. After you build a 100-story, if you start thinking the foundation is a weak one, then you see the kind of risk you're putting the whole building, the whole organization into.
That's a really interesting perspective. And, couple of months back, I was having conversation with a billionaire, and I asked him the similar question: what role has, spirituality played in your business? And he quoted Sri Ravi Shankar, and he said, he told me that, so if you have a piece of a cloth, right? So material world does the job of cutting, which is the job that a Caesar does. And the spiritual world or spirituality does the job of stitching, so that you need both to create a cloth. In the same way, for you to have a balanced life, you need both in the life, and that's a really interesting perspective.
Absolutely, I completely agree with what the billionaire told you. Actually, Another thing, Vijay, again from a learning perspective, since you're mentioning about spirituality also taught me inclusiveness. For a leader, inclusiveness is very important. Spirituality teaches that each one of us is child of God. Whether you are from India, whether you are from Pakistan, whether you're from Afghanistan, there is nothing called Hindu blood, Muslim blood, Christian blood. Blood is blood. There is no Hindu oxygen, Muslim oxygen, Christian oxygen. So spirituality teaches you inclusiveness. Spirituality, since it touches the soul, which doesn't know any caste, creed, and religion, right? So this had a phenomenal impact on my life. Another one which I learned from Swami Srila Prabhupada was, every element which you see in this world. For example, if I ask you to close your eyes and I tell you, I'll give you a rasgulla, and you tell me how the taste is, and suppose it tastes bitter, you say, Sridhar, this is not rasgulla. Or you're thirsty, you ask me for a glass of water, I give you a glass of water. It doesn't quench your thirst. This is not water, it's something else. Or you feel like having chili, and I give you chili and it tastes sweet. This is not chili, something wrong. So each of these items I told you have a property. Water is for quenching thirst, it's a known property. Sugar is for giving sweetness, chili is for giving the hot, pungent, spicy kind of a property. Similarly, soul has a property. The property of the soul is it wants to be eternally happy. Second is, it wants to serve. One may say that I am the master of what I survey, so I don't serve anybody. Actually, you are serving your senses, right? Since you mentioned about stories, I heard one story from Swami Srila Prabhupada where one journalist went to meet the Prime Minister of England, and the officer there told the Prime Minister is busy now. He will meet you a little later. So this guy waited for half an hour, and then he heard noises. So he peeped in from the keyhole to see what's happening on the other side of the room. So the grandson of the Prime Minister was sitting on the back of the Prime Minister, and Prime Minister was doing Ghoda Gadi actually. So what I'm trying to say, you may be Prime Minister of England, but you are serving your grandson. You may be president of this nation, you have to serve the country. A man serves the lady serves the man, we serve our parents serve us. So service is something which is intrinsic to the soul. And service makes one happy. Of course, depends on whom you are serving. And in a place like Japan, where this also I heard from Prabhupada, in a place like Japan where, suppose you're not married, you're a spinster or you're a bachelor, you'll keep a dog. The dog will poop and you'll clean shit. You're serving the dog. You may be a CEO of a large company and a single person, right? So service is very, very integral to the soul. And each soul actually is looking for service. But I met a Harvard professor a few years back. He did a research, and he was telling me that there is a correlation between giving and happiness. When you give, there is service, and happiness are correlated. So these are some of the things which I learned from spirituality, which I try to apply in my day-to-day professional life, and it's been immensely helpful. Immensely helpful. And things like, you are born with an amount of happiness, you're born with an amount of distress. You can't change it. You can vary it. It is like, suppose I carry a bag which is heavy on my right shoulder. Okay. After some time it pains, so I take it off and keep it here. I'm shifting the pain from here to here. Okay. After some time this will start paining. So that amount of happiness and distress is fixed. You can't change it. What we can change is the way we deal with others, the way we serve, the way we do God's work. These are some of the things which really, really help. And while doing all this, be honest, be straightforward, be respectful to others, and be creative and be innovative. Because you need creativity in life and have fun in life. So these are very important, and these are things that really helped me in Akshaypatra.
Wow, that's really well put. And I had this person named miking on the podcast, and he runs something called his Happiness Institute in Denmark, if I'm not mistaken. And I asked him a similar question, like, hey, what are the things that really makes people happy? What is it that people are really looking at? And he has extensively studied, the village in Japan, where people constantly live, beyond 100 years, and they figured out one thing was obviously the community aspect of it, where you belong somewhere. And which also, is the fact that when you belong somewhere, that means you are contributing. That's why you are part of it, right? So, and it turns out that, the people who has a purpose and who are serving others are more happier than the people who are just maybe successful all alone in the journey and may have the titles and recognition and all the materialistic thing. So I think it's finding that balance. So I have, by the way, had a chance to check the Harvard case study done on Akshaypatra. Incredible work there, and the report kind of also mentioned on how below optimal nutrition rate at some of the places where Akshaypatra is kind of providing meals to these kids has gone down from 60% to 0%, and the cases of anemia going down, and so on and so forth, right? So the impact is massive. So give us the sense for our listeners, how massive this organization is. What's the scale that you guys are operating right now, and what goes behind the scene to put this all of this together?
So Vijay, Akshaypatra started very small. Our vision is no child in India will be deprived of education because of hunger. We started very small in the year 2000 with just 5 schools and 1,500 children. In the last 20 years, Akshaypatra, pre-COVID time, we are serving 1.8 million children every day in about 20,000 schools across the country, 12 states and 2 union territories.
Wow.
When COVID struck and schools came to screeching halt, we quickly repurposed our strategy from food for education to food for relief. And we have served about 170 million servings since the time COVID struck. Half of it was in the form of cooked meal, half of it in the form of dry ration boxes. So what goes behind, if you ask me, what is the strength of Akshaypatra? And let me also, do you want to know the extent of operation? On a typical day, pre-COVID time, we will be handling about 400 tons of food raw material every day. And typically a kitchen of 100,000 capacity will be dealing with about 7 tons of grains, 5 tons of vegetables, 5 tons of pulses, and few tons of dairy every day. So, and there are 2,000 vehicles which fly across the country. And I would say it's an experiment on innovation, logistics. So basically, Akshaypatra is a classic case study for social innovation and public-private partnership. We are what we are because of the support which we have got from the government of India, various state governments. Now, overall, I think we have a fantastic team, Vijay. You asked me what is behind all this. So 6,000 of us every morning getting up and trying to ensure, how do we ensure a hot, nutritious, safe meal to these children, to these beneficiaries? So people, I think, are at the core of Akshaypatra. Many times people ask me, who's your most important stakeholder? And they expect me to tell that the most important stakeholder is the child. So I tell them my most important stakeholder is the employee.
Yeah.
The person who's working in the kitchen, the person who's managing the kitchen, the supervisor, the manager of the kitchen. Because it's tough, if you have 10 people at home to feed them a meal day after day after day for all the schooling days is not an ordinary task. So I think it's a great combination of professionals who do fundraising, operations, projects, quality, and they work as if it is their baby and try to nurture Akshaypatra and strengthen it. So whenever during pre-COVID time I visited the kitchens, I've asked people, the teammates who work in the kitchens, what has made you work for last 15 years at Akshaypatra? They say, sir, यहाँ पे हमको कर्म और धर्म दोनों करने को मिलता है.
Beautiful.
So that's the strength of Akshaypatra. And I should not forget that there are 200 missionaries who have dedicated their lives for service to this nation, service to children. They also form a big, strong pillar of Akshaypatra. So missionaries at one side, professionals at the other side, They all have come together. That's the confluence which has made Akshaypatra what it is today. So that is one aspect of it. Second is focus. We have stayed focused on one thing, that is providing a hot, nutritious, safe meal. And third is creativity, innovation. And fourth one is good governance. Akshaypatra has got Gold Shield for Excellence in Financial Reporting for 7 years in a row. The only not-for-profit in India to be in the Hall of Fame of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So it has been a great journey, very, very fulfilling for me. I continue to learn on spirituality because I interact closely with monks, missionary leaders, and I have a phenomenal team, young, vibrant team, and who is ready to go the extra mile to fight out. And they have declared a war on hunger. So our team, I think, it's magical. Whether the team of missionaries, the team of professionals, they do the wonders, and I get the credit. I take the credit actually, because they make it happen, and I get an opportunity to speak in forums like what I'm doing now.
Shridhar, the reason that I asked you what was your dream early on in this conversation is because one of the programs that you also do at Akshaypatra is giving every dream a chance. And what essentially you are doing is giving every dream a chance. Please explain to my listeners, what do you mean by giving every dream a chance? What that means?
So, Vijay, the way I had a dream as a young boy to join the armed forces, right? I joined but could not take it forward. I got an opportunity but could not take it forward. As I told you, my mother was not. She said, "You're a bachcha at home, so don't leave me and go." So coming back to giving every dream a chance, I believe that every individual, every human being has a dream. Every child has a dream. Whether child is born to a rich parent or to a poor parent, every child has a dream. So these are children whom we serve in Akshaypatra. They come from the bottom of the pyramid. They have dreams. So Akshaypatra, in its humble attempt, though our main focus is on feeding a hot, nutritious, safe meal, we want to create a platform where a child's dream can be given wings. So I'll give you one example so you can make out. We looked at the dreams of many children. We shortlisted some children and connected them to mentors. We found one boy, an eighth grader, 2 years back. He had a dream to become a chef. And parents were earning few thousand rupees. They were laborers. And when my team visited his home, it was raining and there were small vessels in the whole room. It was a one room house because rain was dripping from the roof. So this boy had a very unique trait, Vijay. What he will do, at that time, his mother, I think father was not well or was not earning, or he didn't have father. I don't remember now. Mother was earning about 3,000, 4,000 rupees per month. What this boy will do, he'll go to a nearby government school and come back from the school, cut a newspaper and make a chef's hat and wear it on his head and whip up a meal with whatever was there at home. So my team spotted this boy, government school child, who's our beneficiary, and we connected him to one of the best chefs of India in Taj, Bangalore. Okay, and this chef taught this boy for 45 days on hygienically handling food, to how to cook a very tasty meal. And in this 45 days, the boy learned a lot of things because he had the passion, he had the dream to do, right? Fire in the belly, which generally a government school child has. Okay? Many of the international school children or well-to-do children may not have, but this government school children have that fire in the belly. And this boy had that, and this chef spotted that, and he taught him. And we created a wow moment for this child. In Taj, the chef, in fact, took the initiative and called food critics for a lunch. And this boy's mother was also called for the lunch along with the food critics. And this boy cooked the meal, and food critics were not told that this boy has cooked the meal.
Oh, wow.
And they were licking their fingers after the meal. And then the chef brought the boy from the kitchen and took out his chef's hat and placed on the boy. And he said, he has cooked the meal. So mother had tears in her eyes. Vice President of Taj came to know about this. And he sponsored this boy's hotel management education. He promised him that after your schooling, we will put you in the Taj School of Hotel Management. And Taj also promised him to give him a job after he finishes Taj School of Hotel. So this is what I call giving every dream a chance. Like this, there are millions of children. Ours is a humble, I can do it done for say a few hundred children. But every child has a dream, and every child's dream to be given a chance. That is what is giving every dream a chance.
That is such a powerful story, Shridhar. Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you so much for all the amazing work that you and your team at Akshaypatra is doing. So I have one last question that I want to ask you. Before I ask you that question, if people would like to get involved in this cause, if they want to know more about Akshaypatra and and maybe want to make contributions, maybe by contributing their time or resource or whatever way, if they want to be part of this cause, how can they get in touch?
So my request to all the listeners is, all of us have one quality of communication, right? We communicate in our own way. So my request is, in a year, if you can talk to just 100 people about Akshaypatra, ask them to visit www.akshaypatra.org. I think it'll be a great contribution. That's number one. Second is, if you go to our website, you will see a list of volunteering opportunities. You can give your time. You can solve a problem for us. You can participate in the kitchen operations. You can participate in the logistics operations as volunteer. Basically, take up a problem and solve with your friends for Akshaypatra. You can be a fundraiser. You can be a virtual fundraiser for us. And I can assure you that what you do will bring you a lot of satisfaction. Because when you transform life of a child, especially a girl child, I'm underlining this. It is said that when you educate a boy, you educate a family, or you transform a family. When you educate a girl, you transform a generation, or generations to come. So it's a great opportunity. Please participate in this mission, and let us together make Akshaypatra a movement, and let's win the war on hunger.
Absolutely. I link all of those links Shridhar mentioned on the description of this episode. So here's the last question for you, Shridhar. Imagine you are standing on a stage and this is the largest stadium that has ever been built in the history of the world. And there are millions of people who are in that stadium, eagerly, passionately waiting to listen to what you have to share. And you have been given only 1 minute of the time to share the most important lesson that you have learned in your life. What would be your message?
The most important lesson which I have learned in my life, which I want to share with everyone, is please ask yourself why you are doing what you are doing. Number one. Number two, please try to align your life with the instructions which the Creator has given, which God has given. That is the secret of happiness, which each one of us is looking for. And lastly, respect everyone, irrespective of whatever they are, whatever their social status is. Respect everyone, because respect is core to in achieving what you want to do in creating a happy society.
Thank you, Shridhar. Thank you so much for being on the show. It was such a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Thank you, Bijay. Such a pleasure talking to you.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Inspiring Talk podcast. You can find the show notes of this episode at theinspiringtalk.com/120. I would really appreciate if you could take a screenshot of this episode and share it on your Instagram story with your biggest learning. And when you do that, don't forget to tag me at @Bijay Speaks. And also, we now have a separate Instagram page for the show at Inspiring Talk. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you in the next. Now, go out there and do something inspiring.